This video is over lesson 64, adding positive and negative numbers, and it is for my 7th grade math class. Due to the fact that addition and subtraction are our weakest operations, adding and subtracting positives and or negative numbers can be visualized by placing arrows on a number line from end to end. We actually did that in a previous lesson. So if you remember, we modeled how to add positives and negatives using a number line and arrows. It can also be visualized by imagining a line dance in which the dancers move back and forth or left and right. So if you have anybody ever seen people do a line dance, they tend to go back and forth. Now they also turn and move forward and backwards, but we're not going there. But mostly, let's think left and right. So if we take a certain number of steps left, we take a certain number of steps right, we're going to end up so many steps then, either on the left or on the right, from where we started. So let's go ahead and just do a quick review here of what we did in the last lesson about this. So if I have a positive 2, remember that we always start at 0. 0 is neutral territory. So we start at 0. I make a tick mark there. And then a positive 2 tells me to go 2 to the right. So 1, 2, make an arrow and a new tick mark. So that's where we are right now. So when I start my next number is going to start from the same spot. And so it'll start right there, and now a positive 3 tells me to go 3 more to the right. So 1, 2, 3 spaces to the right, and then where we end is our answer. So it should be no surprise, a positive 2 plus a positive 3 is a positive 5. You already knew that, you didn't need to model it to figure it out. However, we're going to use this to help us in just a moment. If we model this now, almost the same problem except for where I had 2 positives, now I have 2 negatives. So this time a negative 2 will tell me go 2 to the left, and then I'll start where I stopped, and then a negative 3 will tell me to go 3, 1, 2, 3 more to the left. And so what we discover is a negative 2 plus a negative 3, oh, and I almost forgot my labels here, my apologies. So what we discover is a negative 2 plus a negative 3 ends up being a negative 5. So hopefully in the course of doing that last lesson, you started to get an idea of some rules that we're going to now talk about today. And the rule that hopefully you started to discover is that if the signs, and when I say signs, we're talking about positive sign, negative sign, if the signs of the two numbers are the same, then we will truly add the values of the numbers and keep the sign the same. So if we have 2 positive numbers we're adding up, we are actually going to add those 2 values. We will actually do 2 plus 3 to get 5. And since both of those are positive, the answer will still be positive. Whereas down here, since these are both negative, we will actually add 2 with 3 to get 5. But since they're both negative, this will be negative. So if you grab your yellow highlighter here, I want to just really highlight the signs are the same, we truly add. So we shorten that down, that's kind of the heart of it. If the signs are the same, we truly add. You are going to actually add those numbers. And then of course, keep the sign. So if we do just a few examples here, we see that these are both positive, so 9 plus 7 is 16. And since these are both positive, that's positive. Whereas 9 plus 7 is still 16, but since these are both negative, that's a negative. Down here, a 46 plus a 64, well, 40 plus 60 is 100, 6 plus 4 is 10, so that's got to be 110. And since these are both positive, that's positive. Down here, these are both negative, so I'm going to add them up. So again, same thing, this will still be 110, but since they're both negative, we're going to be off to the left. That'll be negative. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is our shortcut there for when the signs are the same. If the signs are the same, you are going to truly add up your numbers, and then just keep whatever sign they both had. Now let's take a look at what happens if the sign is different. So if I model this one, again, I'm going to start at 0. 0 is neutral territory. I always start with 0. A positive 2 tells me to go 2 to the right. So 1, 2 to the right. I'm going to remember to label them this time. And then I'm going to start where I stopped. And a negative 3 will tell me to go 3 to 3 to the left. And so when we add these up, we end up with a negative 1. All right, now if I come down here, so this time we had the little guy was positive, the big guy was negative. Now I switch it around. So the little guy is negative, the big guy is positive. So same idea as before, a negative 2 is going to send me 2 to the left. I'm going to remember to label my arrow there. We start where we stopped, and then a positive 3 tells me to go 1, 2, 3 to the right. So this ends up being a positive 1. That ends up being a positive 1. Now, how do you take a 2 and a 3 and end up with a 1? Well, you subtract, of course. So what we discover here is that when the signs are different, we are going to end up subtracting. So here we have it. If the signs of the two numbers are different, then we will actually subtract the values. We will actually subtract the values of the numbers and keep the larger numbers sign. So basically, if we do a little bit of highlighting here, so this time the signs are different, we're going to actually subtract. And as far as the sign goes, it's just a matter of which arrow is longer. So if we look at these two models here, because the negative arrow was longer, that means my answer is going to be a negative. Over here, if the longer arrow is positive, my answer will be a positive. So you can almost think of it like a tug of war. And so the bigger number is just going to win. The bigger number, the stronger number is going to win. So if the bigger number is negative, the answer will be negative. If the bigger number is positive, then it'll be positive. Or again, you can think about that line dance. If you take more steps to the left than you do to the right, well, you're going to end up on the left. If you take more steps to the right than you do to the left, you're going to end up on the right. So whatever direction you take more steps in, that's where you're going to end up. So if we apply that down here then, noticing that the signs are different, we are actually going to subtract. So 9 minus 7 is 2. And then we keep the larger number sign. So 9 is larger than 7, so since the 9 is positive, this is positive. Over here, same idea, different symbols, different signs. One's negative, one's positive. So 9 minus 7 is 2, but this time the bigger number was negative. The negative will win. Likewise down here, since one's a positive, one's a negative, I'm going to subtract. If we subtract 64 minus 46, we get an 18. So subtract them like you would normally do, so the big one minus the little one. And then we see which wins. Well, 64 is bigger than 46, so 64 is going to win. There's going to be a bigger arrow in the negative direction, or you're going to take more steps to the left, or if it's a tug of war, the negative is going to win, however you want to think about it. So that guy will be negative. And then with our last one, a negative 46 plus a positive 64, same idea. We're going to subtract because the signs are different. One's a negative, one's a positive. And then it's the big guy that wins. So this will be a positive 18. So ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to adding positives and negatives, you really do need to either memorize the thinking, so be able to picture that number line in your mind, what direction are your arrows going in, or you need to be able to picture that line dance, or just literally memorize the words here of each of these rules. So whatever the case may be for you, whatever's most natural, you've got to discover that and get that memorized. Whether it's the visual, so the models, or it's the actual words, you just got to get it memorized. So we're going to do a bit of practice now, and I'm going to encourage you as we work through these practice problems at certain points to pause the video and give these a try yourself. I will explain them after you've had a chance to do them, and then hit play and check and see how you did. If you have any questions, make sure that you contact me. This is going to be an important skill moving forward into next year and the years beyond. So let's start up here with this one right here. And you'll notice I have some red lines here. We're going to section these off. Don't worry about that right now. But let's start right here. So these have the same sign. So remember, if they have the same sign, those arrows are working together. They're going the same way, which means we are going to add these together. So 4 plus 9 is 13. And since they're both headed to the right, they're both headed in the positive direction, that means then together they're going to end up in the positive direction. So positive 13 is my answer there. Next up, I notice that these are both negative. So this arrow is going to the left, that arrow is going to the left, which means that when we combine them, we're going to end up even more to the left. They're going to work together. So since the symbol is the same, we're going to add 5 plus 6 is 11, and it's going to be on the negative side. Next up, I see that this is a positive and that's a negative. So since this is a positive, that's a negative. This is going to the right, that's going to the left. These are not working together. They're going to subtract. So 12 minus 10 is 2. And the big guy wins. Big guy's negative, so it'll be a negative 2. All right, at this time, I'd like you to do just these next 3. Go ahead and give the video a pause and try them out for yourself. All right, let's take a look. So a negative 14 plus a positive 23. Since the symbols or the signs are different, we're going to subtract. So 23 minus a 14, hopefully you got a 9 there. And then because the big guy's positive, that'll be a positive 9. Next up, I have a positive 9 plus a negative 6. Again, the symbols are different, which means we are going to subtract. So 9 minus 6 is 3. And since the big guy is the 9 and he's positive, that will also be a positive 3. Next up, a positive 17 plus a positive 13. Honestly, guys, if you got 2 positives, you know how to add 2 positives. You're just going to add them up and they're going to be positive. So 17 plus 13 ends up being 30. And of course, since these are both positive, that's positive. All right. Hopefully we're feeling like we're getting the hang of this at this point. Again, if you're not, make sure you contact me so we can go over this in more details. But I'd like you to try just down to the bottom of this column now. So these next 6 problems, go ahead and pause the video, give those a shot. All right, let's take a look. So I have a negative 7 and a positive 4. So since they have different signs, we're going to subtract them. This is going to the left, that's going to the right. So 7 minus a 4 means we're going to stop at a 3. Now since the 7 is larger and it's negative, it means we're going to stop at a negative 3. Down here, I have a negative 8 plus negative 7. They're both negative, which means we're going to truly add these up. So 8 plus 7 is 15. And since they're both headed to the left, they're both headed into the negative direction, it'll be a negative 15. 2 plus 2 is 4. You guys know that one. Negative 11 plus negative 11, they're both negatives. And so they're going to actually cancel, they're going to work together. So we're going to add these up. 11 plus 11 is 22. And since they're both headed in the negative direction, the result will be in the negative direction. For this next one, we have different signs. So a positive 9 and a negative 9, which means we're going to subtract. So 9 minus 9 is 0. But is that positive 0 or negative 0? Well, the answer is neither. 0 is neither positive nor negative. It's just 0. So one of the little shortcuts that we see here is we would call these opposites. They're on opposite sides of 0. This is 9 to the right, that's 9 to the left. So if you go 9 to the right and come back 9 to the left, you're going to be right back where you started at 0. So when I look down here and I see a negative 17 plus a positive 17, I'm going to apply that same idea there. I know when you add opposites, it's 0. We're going to move up to the next column, and you'll see that I have another little red mark here that lines up with that red mark. So I'd like you to just try the next 6, and then we'll look at them together. So try the next 6. Pause. All right, taking a look. Different signs means we're going to subtract. So 19 minus 14 is 5, and the big guy is 19, so it's a negative 5. A negative 1 and a positive 18 have different signs, so we're going to subtract. 18 minus 1 is 17, and the big guy wins. The big guy's positive, so positive 17. Negative 36 plus negative 24, they're both negative, which means they're working together. We're going to actually add these together. So 30 plus 20 is 50, 6 plus 4 is 10, 50 and 10 makes 60. And since they're both moving in the negative direction, then the result will be even further in the negative direction. If you take 36 steps to the left and then 24 more steps to the left, then you're going to be 60 steps to the left. 25 plus 35, well, they're both positive. So you know how to add two positives. Just add them up like normal. So 25 plus 35 actually is going to be 60. And since this was both positive, that'll be positive. A negative 40 plus a positive 90. So since a negative and a positive, we're going to subtract. 90 minus 40 is 50. And since the big guy is positive, that'll be a positive 50. 20 plus 30, you know that, 50. And since they're both positive, it's positive. All right, and we're going to do likewise now with the last 6 examples. So go ahead and do those and pause the video. All right, let's take a look now. So positive 30 plus negative 50, different signs, means we're going to subtract. So 50 minus 30 is 20. The big guy is negative, so it'll be a negative 20. So if you take 30 steps to the right, but then you come back 50 steps to the left, well, you're going to go past 0 and be back on the left. 20 steps on the left. A negative 10 plus a negative 40. So 10 steps to the left, 40 steps to the left will be a total of 50 steps on the left. Same sign, add up the numbers. 16 plus 7 is 23. Since they're both positive, that's positive. If I take 5 steps to the left and then 28 more steps to the left, well, then you're going to end up even further on the left. So we're going to add those two together. They're working together. So negative 5 plus negative 28. 5 plus 28 is 33. And of course, if we're going to the left and then more to the left, then we're on the left. It's a negative 33. All right, and then positive 3 plus a negative 8. Different signs, we're going to subtract. So 8 minus 3 is 5. The big guy here is the negative 8, so it'll be a negative 5. And this last one, actually, if you had the answer to this one, you should have the answer to this one. Because notice, we still have a negative 8 plus a positive 3. It's the same problem. Remember, in addition, you can switch the two numbers around, and it still has the same answer. Well, guess what? That still works when we're dealing with positives and negatives. So if that's a negative 5, that's a negative 5. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you are feeling like you're struggling with this, you're not quite sure what's going on or how to do this, please contact me quickly and early so that way we can go over that. But otherwise, that is the end of our lesson.